Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, you're listening to the Technology Equals Equality podcast.
Welcome back to the Technology Equals Equality podcast. I'm your host, Lori Brooks, and this is episode 55. I am super pleased to welcome to the show Rom JB of Rom JB Tutoring. Rom is a special educator, tutorpreneur, and copywriter based in New York City. In 2010, Rom founded RJB Educational Services, Inc., an in-home tutoring agency where tutors travel to the home of the clients to work with their children one-on-one. RJB Educational has grown significantly during the past 5 years by focusing on customer service, marketing, selling, and systemization. When Rom is not working on his tutoring business, he is busy helping other entrepreneurs improve their website and marketing copy as a copywriter. Rom's entrepreneurial journey has not been an easy one, but he wouldn't trade it for anything. He believes with focus and perseverance, anything is possible.
Thank you for taking the time to touch base. And so, Romeo, tell us a story of how it is that you once saw the future. Before you began thinking about business or adulthood as a whole, what was it, as a kid, you were thinking you might want to be when you grew up?
When I was a kid, I always wanted to be an astronaut. I dreamed of it. I spoke of it. I used to watch movies and thinking of me going to the moon, to the Mars. I love watching movies that have to do anything with astronomy, documentaries. But as I got to high school, I said, no, I'm definitely not going to be going into astronomy because the math is too hard. That's when I gave up on that dream. I wouldn't be able to do it. A man has to know his limits, and I recognized it, and I was not going to try to pursue that career. and next came me wanting to be a lawyer eventually one day. Mm-hmm. Not because I was in love with law, but because I wanted to do something that made money and, that I could have security and all that good stuff that we're fed. But as I got into college, again, I woke myself up and said, law is not for me, because I saw all my friends that wanted to be eventually going to law school, that wanted to be lawyers. They were studying harder than I wanted to study. And they weren't going to the parties I wanted to go to the party to. And I said, you know what, this thing is not for me. Right. So I gave that up. I've given up a lot of things that I guess you will say are dreams, and just focus on the reality of what I really wanted. And towards the end of college, my college years, I really started coming to myself and knowing that certain things I do not want to do, and certain things I'll pursue them even if they don't have any money in them. I'll create a way. And that's how today, I'm an educator, entrepreneur, and basically living the life that I want to live and pursuing even a better life.
I love how you described the transition through those phases that I think gets really left out of a lot of the stories that we hear on the show as you grew up, because I know there's so many people who go through that phase of having this dream of some specific role in life as you're a child, be it an astronaut or a doctor or a lawyer or something, and you get to this moment where reality sets in and you recognize that may not be the type of lifestyle that you were realistically thinking of. And I love that recognition, like you said, and the reality behind it. The math wasn't what you were looking for. It just wasn't it for you. And that's funny. I remember in high school, I have no idea where this thought process came from, but I really thought I was going to be a translator. I took sign language courses, I took Spanish, I took Russian. That just never panned out. Eventually I got to a point where Russian was it for me. That was enough, I took 6 years of it and then spent about a month in the country. And after that month of being immersed in the language, though I loved it and the experience was unlike anything I could even, match to this day, it just was an eye-opening experience that it wasn't necessarily what I thought I wanted to do in life, and how easily that can change experientially as you grow, when you begin recognizing self. So I love that. What do you feel like were some of the first steps that you began taking once you finished school, once you began looking at a career as a whole, and decided you wanted to do something that was more focused on your goals as, an individual? What do you feel were some of those first steps?
I started reading. I started reading personal development and business books. And the first book I read that really had a major impact on me was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And that book really hit a nerve with me, and seeing how people thought of money and how they thought of money differently, and that's why they were in certain situations. And I grew up without much at all. And when I read that book, it made me really look in the mirror and made me think and really deeply analyze myself and ask myself some questions. And I had a lot of limiting beliefs, and that was stopping me from making decisions and basically self-sabotaging along the way. And that book really is what started me reading other books that made a difference in my life. And till this day, I'm reading. I read at least a book a month, and I listen to books on audio. And reading is very important because when you're reading, when you're listening to books, or you could be watching YouTube videos, motivational videos, you learn a lot. And when you're someone who's already self-motivated, you have no choice but to take action. And one of the books that I read that really helped, even getting into entrepreneurship, is the EMyth. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, I'm actually not. I was going to say with Robert Kiyosaki, very familiar with the book.
Okay.
Read, and it provides great clarity on the different thought processes that are involved with finances. It's funny, I didn't run across the book until I'd say probably 5 or 6 years ago. But since then, I've actually purchased the teen version for my daughter, who again found it very interesting, absolutely loved it, very good read. It's one of those eye-opening books, and I actually think there was another guest recently, a Dave DiGiorno, who also had recently read the book, and it's an eye-opening book. And if any of you listening haven't picked this book up yet, you should definitely go out and grab a copy, because it's a book that makes you definitely question a number of things as you. But I'm not familiar with the EMyth at all, so I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
The EMyth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber is a book that anyone going to entrepreneurship, starting a business, solopreneur, anything, you need to read it. You need to read it. This book have earned me, I will tell you, tens of thousands of dollars just reading it itself. There's a lot of things I'm actually doing in my business that directly are from that book. And what the focus of the book is creating systems.
Right.
Creating systems in your business that works without you having to be there all the time. Because a lot of us, especially solopreneurs, we start a business, but it's really not a business, but another job that you're creating for yourself.
Precisely, because unless you prepare yourself from initial, start to actually be able to scale, then it's impossible to do so, because you're far too involved working in the business to be able to take a step back and work on it.
And I'm glad you said that, because his entire message is working on your business instead of in your business.
Exactly.
And it's two different perspectives.
Right.
So
right.
You'd rather be working on your business instead of in your business.
Precisely. You need to delegate those tasks out to other people to work in your business while you focus working on the business to scale.
Yes.
Definitely. What do you feel was one of the most difficult parts of becoming an entrepreneur? What do you think really hindered you in taking the initial steps once you had read personal development books and you had the motivation and that drive that was going to push you forward? What do you feel really was still stalling you once you got out of your own way in terms of mindset and focus?
Fear of what other people would think. That was really one of my major fears. I remember when I got my first client. Before I even got to the first client, I was really contemplating of me putting myself out there, putting out flyers, texting people and letting them know that I'm I'm starting a tutoring business and this is what I want to do. I was very much like, well, what are they going to think of me?
Right.
And when I got my first client, I remember to this day of me walking to the building, ringing the bell, and going to the apartment. And it was me putting myself out there. It's like you're bearing your soul. You are basically naked to the world, and it's very scary. And it's something that I can't describe it for anyone that haven't been through it, but it's that fear of thinking, what would they think of me? Are they gonna like me? Are they gonna like my service? Are they gonna like or are they gonna like my product? What will they think of me? That was the major fear. And once I got over that fear, then everything else slowly got into place.
Definitely. I think the fear of being true to yourself and what other people may have as a thought process or a comment and it's funny how we trick ourselves into believing that there's some sort of negative action that could honestly occur from us doing what we're passionate about doing. The worst that can happen is somebody says they're not interested. There's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. You can only grow from those moments of which don't turn out the way that you initially think that they would be able to turn out. What do you feel like you learned during this journey that you had no idea you were going to end up coming across? What's one thing that, you never even set out to learn or to educate yourself in, that you kind of stumbled into?
Two things that I've learned is focusing on marketing and sales. Those two things I've come to embrace, because you can have the best product in the world. If no one knows about it, you're not making any money. You could have the best product in the world, and if no one's buying, you're not in business. So sales and marketing is something I've invested a lot of time in learning, practicing, learning some more, and practicing some more. And it all starts with knowing your clients and being able to listen to them and providing what they need, not what you think they want.
Definitely. I love that. The marketing and sales aspect of starting your own business is a funny one that I think, as an entrepreneur with this great idea of what it is you want to do, the thought process of actually having to become a marketer and putting on that sales hat and that marketing hat and creating your campaigns and so forth is not something that you consider before you begin working on this big idea that you have as your business and your entrepreneurial journey as a whole. So that's a great one. I love that. That is definitely something I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of take for granted. I know when I was speaking with Bernard Schinner, who was a guest on one of the very, very early episodes of the show, he was mentioning how they started the company simply based off the fact that they used to hang out in the garage and college was over and they couldn't hang out in the garage anymore. So they had to come up with a business. And so the thought process of becoming marketers and things of that sort, it's not something that is considered heavily prior to, jumping or diving into this journey with your big idea. I'm curious, if you had a time machine and could go back, say, 10 to 15 years and tell yourself one thing, what do you think it would be?
Be yourself.
Good one.
Be yourself. Because I mean, like anyone else, I spent a lot of time in my life doing things based on what other people may think. Mm-hmm. And the faster you get rid of that thought process of doing things for other people and trying to see yourself based on what in other people's eyes, the faster you'll become who you're supposed to be. So be yourself. Be yourself. Know what you like. Know what you don't like. Know what you're not willing to settle for or negotiate. Just be yourself. That's one thing I would tell myself if I had to go back.
I love that. Most of the time it's, to start sooner or to change the clock back or to, pivot in a certain direction, but definitely knowing yourself and staying true to who you are is an important and extremely important piece of the journey. Take a moment and just tell us a little bit about RJB Education and what it is that you do with your clients, how the program works. I understand that this is a tutoring service, but this is a tutoring service of which actually travels to the students themselves, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And in 2010,
mm-hmm.
in the fall of 2010, it was the first fall in my life that I did not have to attend school. I had finished my master's degree, and I was and as a teacher, every single teacher always wants extra money. The pay is never enough. And I was looking for extra income, extra source of revenue, but I was not willing to just go and work at Macy's or somewhere else. I wanted to use the knowledge that I already have as a teacher, as an educator, to start something. Right. And as I started thinking, tutoring came to mind, and it was a perfect thing for a teacher to tutor. And that's when I started doing research, and I discovered the tutoring business was a $10 billion plus industry back in 2010. And that shocked me. And I started asking myself, how can I get into this? I started putting myself out there, reading books and putting flyers out, Craigslist. I got my first client not too far out after that. I got my first client, started working with my first client. And what we do is that we go to the home of the clients. We don't have a center. We don't have any physical location that we meet. The client's home is our physical location. So therefore, we don't have any rent that we're paying. We don't have any insurance we're paying for, a lease, nothing. So that was the whole business concept. And that still today is the same way.
I love that.
So we don't have any, literally our overhead is extremely minute.
That's awesome.
It's minute. So
it's toasty.
Yes, I know you like that.
I love that.
It's not a lot of expense at all. And as I got my first client, started getting a second, a third, and I couldn't handle it anymore. So I went to teachers that I work with, and I told them, I started the tutoring business, and I have clients. Would you be willing to work with me as an independent contractor? I went on Google, searched independent contracting. I copied and pasted what I needed to copy and paste, made sure everything was flowing, and I protected myself. I protected them, presented them with the contract, signed it, and give them the 1099. All that I did, all the research. And today we have many tutors and many clients. And of course we have a website. Back then we didn't have a website. We have a website, and we're still doing the same thing. We travel to the home of the clients, kindergarten to 12th grade. We focus on math, reading and writing, and also science and history, and test prep, SAT, ACT, and other local exams in New York City and Long Island.
I love that. I love how you started that. That's absolutely awesome. The fact that you really just started looking for the extra income on the side. And I think that's so important for people to understand, because a lot of the time You may be out there working your job, doing what you're trying to do on a regular basis, but we all know that sometimes one job is really not enough in this day and age, and just looking for that side income can sometimes spark an entrepreneurial journey unexpectedly, which is what it sounds like it really did for you. It just, it snowballed and took off the second you were able to obtain a client. From there, it grew to a point where you needed the extra help and had to begin looking for contractors to work with in order to just facilitate the client base that you had already grown at that point. So that's outstanding, and it's my hat's off to you, because that's an awesome way to get started in any sort of industry, and to be able to grow it to where you've done thus far is outstanding. So congrats.
Thank you.
The show is really designed to help entrepreneurs come up with ideas to help solve the pain in an industry and spark an industry of their own. So we'd love to help you. If you had a magic wand and could change anything at all in your business, what do you think it would be and why?
That's a tough question. Only one thing?
Well, it is a magic wand. I mean, I suppose we could wish for a million things, but in the essence of time.
Well, one of the focus for the next 12 months is focusing more on online tutoring. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing I would change, in exploding our online tutoring portion. That's what we're working on.
Awesome.
Yeah, so because that's the next wave really in tutoring as well, right, is online tutoring. So we're focusing on that. So if I had that magic wand, then it would have to just take us from A to Z.
A to Z and create the online platform would be awesome, definitely. And that may not be, out there, tell you the truth, because we've got quite an audience at this point, and some rather talented people in some really interesting industries. So somebody may, in fact, be able to reach out and help you out with getting that online platform up and running sooner than later. But Romeo, you've been absolutely wonderful, and I thank you so much for sharing your time with the audience today. Please share the best way for the listeners to find you.
Facebook, Rom JB. That's the best way to find me. It's R as in Robert, O as in operation, M as in master, JB is J as in job, and B as in boy. Rom JB, you'll find me.
Rom JB on Facebook, definitely. Rom, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. You've been wonderful.
Rom, thank you once again for sharing your expertise and time with the audience this morning. And Techie community, thank you guys for tuning in once again for episode number 55. You can feel free to reach out to Rom at RomJB on Facebook, or you can always reach him through our show notes page at technology-equality.com/RomJB. Again, that's technology-equality.com, our new domain. Don't forget to check us out. And again, feel free to give us a little feedback on the new WordPress site. We'd love to hear from you guys. And don't forget to click that subscribe button over in iTunes so you don't miss another episode. And until our next episode, when we continue to hear the journey, find the pain and create solutions, enjoy the week.